Welcome to WIS Sports Radio. I'm Chris Stafford. If you're a new visitor to the podcast, you can listen online at wissports.com or subscribe free on any podcast app. We have the largest podcast network for women's sport in the world, with more than 700 episodes across 30 shows and a global audience of 1.5 million. And our Athlete Profile Show is one of our longest running series in which we get up close and personal with athletes and their stories. And today, my guest is someone who is becoming a pioneer for her new sport and for her country. Former track and field athlete Seun Adigun already established herself as a hurdler when she competed at the 2012 Olympic Games. Since she was a child growing up in Chicago, sport has been her life, from flag football to tennis. She was an avid basketball player as well as a track and field athlete in high school, and she is the 3-time Nigerian National Champion and a 2-time African Continental Champion, as well as holding a master's degree in physical education. Seun's focus has shifted now from the athletics track to the bobsled run, and has her sights set on the 2018 Winter Olympic Games in Pyeonchang. Her team of UNGARZI Onwumere and OKARMA Omeoga is set to become the first Nigerian women's bobsled team, having already qualified for the Games. Seun started a fundraising campaign and estimates their Olympic goal is going to cost them $150,000, but it's a gift she wants to give to her native country. Seun, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much, Chris. Thanks for having me.
Well, this is exciting for you, obviously, because you're making history for your home country of Nigeria. You're breaking into another sport, and we've seen that with a few athletes who are going into bobsled as a second sport. So you'll have to tell us the story of what it was that convinced you to take up bobsled, and having been a sprinter, which is, of course, useful for the start of the race, isn't it, to push that bobsled out, to have some speed?
Yes, it is.
So how did this all get started then, and what made you so inspired that you were going to raise money and get a bobsled team of Nigerian women to the Winter Olympic Games?
Well, to be honest, Chris, I took a little hiatus from athletics after 2012 Summer Olympic Games. A lot of it was to just let my body recover from a stress fracture that I had during the Olympics in my leg. But it was also to just kind of like mentally and emotionally to just get myself together. And after about 2 years, I started watching the Winter Olympics because I knew a few athletes that were former track and field athletes that had ventured into the sport. And so, out of support and wanting to just kind of see how this whole thing worked, I watched the Winter Olympics and I said to myself, I think I can actually do bobsled. And it wasn't until I resigned from coaching full-time at University of Houston in 2014 that eventually that athletic void started to creep up on me, and I decided to full-fledged go ahead and try out for the U.S. team in 2015. And I actually ended up making the team after about 6 weeks of just getting back into training. And while I was on the team that 2015-2016 season, I learned that the International Bobsled and Skeleton Federation was looking to expand the sport. They needed more women's teams. And I had a discussion with the Nigerian Olympic Committee first vice president, Chief Solomon Ogba, who mentioned to me that the country of Nigeria was looking for Winter Olympians for 2015, but they just didn't have any people. So it was that, and then, learning about Nigeria needing and wanting Olympians for the winter, and then to cap it off, learning that Africa as a continent had never been represented, man or woman, by the sport of bobsled in the Winter Olympic Games. And I said to myself, I don't know how we can be in 2016 at the time and not have representation for an entire continent at the Winter Olympics or in any sport. So at that point, I think my heart overruled my mind and decided to go ahead and start this.
Clearly, it was a passion, and then you found the rest of the team. We're going to talk about UNGARZI and OKARMA, who joined you on this team and on this mission. But you had to raise money. This wasn't a free ride, was it?
No, it wasn't at all. Actually, it was one of those things where people don't really understand that bobsled or winter sports in general are very, very expensive between the equipment and the travel and everything that's associated with it. You spend quite a bit of money. And so I had to tap into my savings because, like I mentioned, I resigned from my job to go to school full time as a doctorate of chiropractic and a master's of science in exercise science. So I was essentially working off of a student budget and then thought it was a grand idea to start a sport. So that's why I was saying my heart and my brain were at war, because my brain was like, this does not even make sense. And my heart was like, you've got to go for it. So eventually I decided that I needed some financial assistance. And I also wanted to use it as an opportunity to expand the awareness and let people know what was actually going on. So I launched a crowdfunding page in 2016, actually this time last year, end of November. And that ended up doing very well. And it did exactly what I needed to do, which was get us through the first season, as well as get the information out there, let people know that, you know, this was what was going on, this is what I was doing. And it was very successful.
Well, it clearly was, and now you're actually qualified for the Olympic Games. So tell us about that qualification process.
Yeah, no, I think that it's still kind of surreal, the fact that, you know, things are coming to fruition at this point with the whole Olympic Games. For the sport, you are to qualify for the Games by completing something called a 5-3-2, which is 5 races on 3 separate tracks within 2 seasons. Once you've done that, you've now become Olympic eligible. And based on the way that you perform at these races individually, whether it's by your place or what have you, you then accumulate points. So those points will determine your overall IBSF ranking. And the Olympic Games, they select the top 20 women bobsled athletes per ranking in order to go. So there are 2 ways that you generally qualify. You either qualify because you're in the top 20 by your ranking, or you qualify by automatic bid from Continental, like you're the only representation from the continent. So for me, although I was the one athlete from Africa, I did not want us to just bank on being, you know, the automatic bid, because anyone could come up and say, hey, you know, we're going to start another bobsled team in an African country. So it was a point to make for me to go ahead and complete that 5-3-2 and allow myself to be Olympic eligible. Because I don't have to compete against any other African country, and because of the number of women's teams that there are competing in the world being very minimal, I'm essentially qualified just by completing that 5-3-2.
Clearly, you're a woman who has a need for speed. You're a sprinter, and this really appealed to you because, boy, you know, watching it as I do, I watch the bobsled, the World Cup bobsleigh races. You've got to have really quick reflexes. There's just so minimal room for error, isn't there, with the driving? And you're the driver, right, of the sled?
That's correct.
So what do you think you brought to it as an athlete then? Clearly your competitive side and that need for speed. But in terms of the skills that you need as a bobsled driver then, Seun?
Yeah, I think the most important thing that I brought to it was just the discipline, the ability to multitask, the ability to do things effectively, learn, listen, be coachable, and be able to focus on the goal at hand and then execute it.
Now, you mentioned there the coaching, and no team could get to the Olympic Games without some help, and obviously that level demands that level type of coach too. How did you find your coach?
We were blessed to have the IBSF put together an emerging packet for us. So there are emerging nations, which are like the warm nations or nations that don't have tracks within their country. So the International Bobsled and Skeleton Federation basically put together a coaching staff that would be able to assist these nations who don't have these resources. So I was fortunate enough to have a coach that was provided to me through the International Bobsled and Skeleton Federation.
You've got your coach, then you have the expense of the sled as well, maybe some help there, and that was part of raising money, no doubt, to put all of this together. But tell us about your team selection. How did you find ONGARZI and OKARMA, and were they as crazy and passionate about the sport and making this the first Nigerian bobsled team ever. Are they friends? How did that come about?
It's interesting because I actually have known Ngozi since she was like 18 years old when she was recruited to University of Houston as a track and field athlete. I was coaching there, so I was actually her coach for 4 years. And then OKARMA I met last year when she just decided to up and move from Minnesota to Houston. And I was connected to her through a mutual friend who essentially asked, that I just look after her because she didn't come to Houston with any family or, didn't really know anyone here. So that's how I met OKARMA. And then eventually through this idea, introduced the both of them together.
And you put it to them in what way? I'm just curious about that first conversation then, Seun, when you're like, oh, how about we do this?
Well, with Ngozi, we actually had created more of like a mentor-mentee type of relationship post graduation and even while she was an athlete there as well. And we would have like annual lunches where we would get together and just talk about life and reflect on things, kind of talk about the next plans. And so it was actually during one of these meetings that she was just telling me about some ideas and things that she had going on, and then eventually asked me what it was that I was doing and, where I was and, what was going on in my life. And it just so happened at that point that I had just decided that I was going to start this bobsled team. And so I was telling her about that. And she said, I think that's something I might do. Let me, do a little research on it, but I think I could do that. And then she came back a couple of days later and was like, hey, the bobsled thing you're talking about, I think I want to do it. And I was like, okay, cool. So I had one brakeman. And then OKARMA, through just knowing her and getting to know her when she moved to Houston, I eventually just decided, I think she'd be great to fit into this profile of what I'm trying to do. And having a track and field background herself, both of them, having track and field backgrounds, but learning that OKARMA was also a collegiate athlete and just seeing, personality and the type of resilience that she exuded, I just called her and I was like, hey, so remember I was telling you about a project I was working on? So this is the project. And she was like, oh, and I was like, so would you want a bobsled? And she was like, yeah, actually, I think I would. I was like, really? Oh, okay, cool. But I don't think she knew exactly what she was signing herself up for when she actually said yes in that moment until a couple of days later after she asked. And she was like, wait a minute, did I just sign up to bobsled?
I could just imagine that conversation. And when you first went down a run, though, Seun, I mean, you watch the speed and you get a sense of it on TV, but it is extremely fast and it is, it's spontaneous. What was your reaction the first time you went down? And also of your teammates there, too. What was their reaction since they didn't know what they were heading into?
The first time I went down as a brakeman. And so I was just completely floored at the experience. I almost not hated it, but I almost was like, what are you doing in this sled? It was probably one of the most confusing moments of my life. As I was going down the whole time, I was like, I'm going to fly out of this thing. Like, this is nuts. This is totally not what I expected it to be. I can't even hold it. I was just like, I got out and I was dizzy. It was just all types of crazy. But then I ended up getting back in. So it obviously wasn't bad enough. And I think the experience, as my brakemen have told me, has been the same for them. OKARMA, I think, was a little bit more disappointed because she's like the thrill seeker, the big roller coaster person. And so she thought it'd feel a lot more like a roller coaster, and it did not. So she was just kind of like, okay, this does not feel like a roller coaster. But I'll get back in also. Like, it just was one of those things where you created this like love-hate relationship almost immediately.
Was it a little bit scary? I can imagine go down there. I mean, I'm not a speed merchant and I don't drive fast, but do you like fast in your car? I mean, was that just another thrill of it? Was the actual speed?
No, not really. Because I mean, when I joined the bobsled team, I was a brakeman. I didn't intend on coming into the team or coming into the sport and learning to drive. I was a brakeman on the U.S. team. It was just while I was an athlete there was when I learned all these things, which then inadvertently forced me to need to go to the driver's seat in order for this to actually work. So I didn't necessarily come in just like, oh, I'm this big thrill seeker that wants all this speed and I like to drive, like it just kind of fell upon me and I just accepted it as it was.
So let's talk about the sled itself then. Do you get some financial help at all from your Olympic Committee, Nigerian Olympic Committee, or the federation, the national federation there, or was it all down to you raising the money to buy the sled in the first place?
Well, for initially, the Nigerian Olympic Committee and Nigerian government, it's not that they don't want to back it. It's just that there's this brand new sport that comes out of nowhere, that needs funding. And it wasn't something that I initially brought out because I wanted to take money from the country. This was more so a gift. This was something that I wanted to create as a gift for the country. So this was never really a matter of, how much can the Nigerian government give me for us to get this done? It was more so, how much can I get people involved in providing something special for a country and then a continent? So really, we never asked the government for anything. We wanted them to be able to go through the processes that they need for approval, for funding and things like that, and just see that this is something we wanted to give. And that is something that they're doing. They're very thrilled about the idea of having the bobsled team, and they're working on, utilizing all their funding and financial avenues to help so that there's some sustenance to this federation that was built. We were grateful enough, though, that one, I had a pretty good savings plan initially. And then two, with the crowdfunding, there was some support that came in from that also sparked awareness for future sponsors. And so, I'm absolutely thrilled now that we're Team Visa and Team Under Armour. Being Team Visa has just been so special. They've come in, we've fundraised, but they've also come in and helped us financially with some things that we need to purchase for essential use as well. And this is like probably the number one merchant in the world, the only one that I've ever used, so I was so thrilled at the idea of just being able to get that type of financial support from such, world renowned and, amazing company. So we've had that. I also have a manager and a management team out of Nigeria Temple Management Company. And Mr. Koye has done a remarkable job of also trying to help us find funding. So we've had people come literally out of the woodwork to make sure that we realize the dream that's been set forth for this gift for Nigeria.
You must be thrilled, already getting this far with the whole operation of getting a team together and getting those sponsors. And I'm curious now, though, with the training, the pressure is starting to be on you, isn't it? So what does that training and competition plan look like?
Yeah, well, to be honest, I think the pressure's always been on since the announcement. It was like, okay, what are these ladies talking about? What are they really going to do? Is this a joke? Is this a gimmick? Because people are already confused about the idea of a sub-Saharan country in the winter sports in the first place. So, I think being able to curb that was pressure enough. But at this point now, we're really trying to fine tune ourselves into the game. One thing we do have is a lot of respect for the sport and a lot of respect for the process. And so we understand that for something to be an Olympic sport, there is like a new echelon of competitive nature that you have to be in. And we respect that, we're new to it and we're going to need to work 2, 3, 10 times as hard as the next person just to be, competitive at all. So we're getting in the weight room, getting our strength up, getting our speed up, and we're practicing with our practice wooden sled that that was made here in Houston called the Mayflower. And that's something that has been a special tool in helping us really work on our cadence and running behind an object and pushing and hitting together. And then, getting up to Lake Placid for the last race on the circuit for the NAC, which is the North America's Cup. And that's going to be at the beginning of January to get more experience behind the sled. So, and behind the driving on the actual track. And that right there should lead us up to, our final prep into the Winter Olympic Games.
So then you won't actually get on a run until January then? He'll be training the whole of December then before you get back on the ice?
Correct. We'll be doing pretty much mostly training. And then I just, had to, the only reason why we didn't do the race in December just because I had to get back for graduation, because it's kind of a big thing for me at this point right now also.
Tell us about the graduation then, Seun.
Well, I decided it was a great idea to pursue a dual degree and then come up with an idea of starting a bobsled federation, which, should I mention to people, is not a good idea. Would not recommend it to anyone. Please don't try this at home. Okay. Like, it was absolutely nuts. So when I mentioned about resigning from school, from coaching at University of Houston, I went on to pursue a dual degree as a doctorate of chiropractic and a master's of science in sports science. So that was about almost 4 years ago, and now we are here. I don't know how, but thank God. God's good. I made it to this point, and graduation's in a couple weeks.
Well, congratulations on that. It's all happening for you, isn't it?
Thank you. Well, I mean, there's a lot of weight loss, a lot of lost nights of sleep, a lot of trying not to pull my hair out. There's a couple factors that went into this completion. A whole lot of prayer.
I can well imagine. And just go back to your training there. You talked about the lifts, the weightlifting, the cross training there, Sean, because as a sprinter, you wouldn't be looking at, building up a body strength so much as you're having to now, clearly. And I've seen often the training of bobsled is about that push, isn't it? Putting weights on that dummy sled and the push. That's where your speed is. That's the most critical part of a race, isn't it? So you probably and your teammates there had to do a lot of upper body strength. Did you, as much as anything?
Yeah, I mean, it was not just upper body strength, it was full body strength, because we, coming from track and field, are much smaller than your traditional bobsled athlete, because you have to be lean with track and field, whereas you have to be more bulky with bobsled. So we had to put on close to 15 pounds each just to be in the same kind of competitive bracket physically as the other bobsled women in the world and on the circuit. So, I mean, there was a lot invested, not just, increasing our lifting strength and all of that, eating more calories a day. There's just so many changes that have to be made, because you think, oh, well, gaining 15 pounds, most women are like, I wish that was a problem I could have, but realistically, you have to gain the right type of 15 pounds, like it has to be muscle weight, it has to be strong, you have to be fast with it. So yeah, that was, I think, probably the bigger issue, because being strong is not just to be able to lift the sled around or to be able to provide force to push it down the hill when you start. It's also for the weight of the sled, because like physics will tell you, the more weight that you have, the more kilograms that you can match with your velocities, the more force that you'll be able to produce. And so it actually will span out to give you a lot more speed.
A fascinating sort of process to come from running, in a completely different sport, different demands entirely on the body to what you're doing now. Do you still run?
I run to be bobsled fit, like I sprint. That's about all the running you'll get from me at this point.
Do you miss that side? Running track, do you miss it? Tom?
No, I think when I took my exit from track and field, I had gotten to the point where I was completely fulfilled with everything that I had accomplished. And the only thing at that point that was really important to me was helping to make other athletes, great. So, yeah, and once I resigned from coaching, that part I missed the most. I think that's probably the biggest thing I miss about track and field was helping to get other athletes to be their best.
So a typical day now for you is obviously the training every single day, I would imagine. And do you have a day job, or are you kind of in between now, having graduated?
No, I haven't had a day job since I started school. After resigning from coaching, that was my day job. My day job is seeing patients in clinic and fulfilling my academic requirements so that I can graduate in a couple weeks from both of those schools. So yeah, my days are pretty crazy, from clinic all day to doing whatever requirements I need, or internships I need to do, or research proposals I need to write, and then going on to do the training and workout in the evening when I meet up with the other ladies. Sometimes we meet up together multiple times a week. Other times we just do our strength training individually, since we live rather far from one another.
So 7 days a week training?
No, more so like 5 or 6 days, especially at this point in the season. Maybe an off season was a lot more volume, but now that we're in season, it's from primarily fine tuning and just proper execution. So rest is actually important at this phase as well.
Right, and you know all about that balance, of course, the nutrition, the rest, and the right ratio of training. Now, you mentioned earlier that one of the most important things to you about all of this, Seun, is that you're giving a gift to Nigeria and to Nigerian women to show them that you can go and do something which I'm sure many Nigerians would never have thought, that they were going to have a women's bobsled team, an African nation going to be at the Winter Olympics. What does this mean really to you as an athlete and as a citizen?
I think that my biggest purpose in life has been to try and empower others to doing things that were outside of their norm, or to be able to tackle the idea of impossible being nothing and conquering the fear of the unknown. And I think everything that I represent is not just, being Nigerian, being Nigerian American, being a woman, just everything that I represent at this point, I want it to be able to project onto those who can relate. And so, one of my prayers every single morning, to God is that he just uses me as a tool and a vessel on this earth to help bless others. And I think that that's exactly what's happening right now, is that I don't always know the impact that I have, because my intentions are just to do something good, to do something pure, and to do something selfless, which is why this all along was set up to be a gift, because I don't intend on creating problems or issues for people. I want people to understand that life is more than just what you see on the surface. It's something you can really conquer if you just believe it and achieve it.
Well, obviously your parents are used to you being an Olympian, but what was their reaction to this? And you've left Chicago, Illinois, where you grew up, so you've been gone from the frozen north for a while, and they've been watching you and how this is all unfolding. What have they said in reaction to your second Olympic dream?
Initially, they were kind of skeptic because, they didn't quite understand what this was altogether, which is about, 85% of the world anyway. But once they realized that I had a passion for it, and they understood, just the type of woman that they've raised, they were completely supportive and backed me. They're like, I don't really know what you're doing, why you're doing it, or, how, but I mean, if it's something you're passionate about, we'll support you the best way we can. And as they slowly started to see things manifest, they really understood exactly what it was I was doing, and they couldn't be prouder. They couldn't be happier. And I think that just is a reflection of having a great support system from my family, both my father, my mother, my brothers, my sister-in-law, like just everyone in my family, from immediate to distant, they've just backed it completely. And they couldn't be more excited about Nigeria having this special treat and then having it come from someone directly within their reach.
That's fabulous. And clearly you've got a big cheerleading team there. Were your parents at all athletic at all, Seun? Where did you get your sporting interest?
Yeah, actually my dad was a very well-known soccer player in his prime when he was growing up in the neighborhoods in Nigeria. My grandfather was actually an Olympic coach in tennis, in lawn tennis. And my uncle, my mom's younger brother, was African champion in lawn tennis. My mom did track and field when she was in high school. My grandmother was also a pretty well-known sprinter. Well, she was known for being pretty fast. And she actually hurdled also, which everyone thinks that's where I became a hurdler from her. And my dad's side of the family is pretty athletic. We've got a lot of martial artists. We've also got relation with Hakeem Olajuwon, a very well-known Hall of Fame basketball player who is also my dad's cousin. So, yeah. It
is in the genes then, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it might just be.
I think it is, but certainly not the bobsled. From hurdling to bobsled.
Well, no.
What a ride. I want to wish you the very, very best of luck with it, and to your team members there. And we will be following you here with interest, and all the way to Pyeonchang. So thank you again for taking the time to come on the program, and the very best of luck to you all.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a blessing.
And we'd like to take this opportunity now to introduce you to one of our new affiliate partners here at Wisp Sports. A few years ago, Jenny Powell from the UK started a new website for women in sport because she wanted to see more coverage of sportswomen. Her website is fortheloveofsport.co.uk, and Jenny joins me now to tell us about the website as well as the sports and stories that she covers. Well, first of all, congratulations on building up the site that you have there to cover sport in England and beyond the island, I would say, because you're a lover of women's sports and you just wanted to get more coverage, didn't you? I think that was the reason, the motive behind you starting the website.
Yeah, absolutely right. I'm a sport lover, so not just women's sport, but all sport. And I just got exasperated at the lack of coverage of women's sport. And more than that, I felt that as a sport lover, when I suddenly realised that the England women took part in a Six Nations competition, I didn't even know it existed. This was not that many years ago. I was quite shocked because I thought that if I don't know it's happening, then what about, others that aren't as keen as I am to dig things out? And the more I looked, the more I discovered that women are doing. And I think it's, awful that they can't get more coverage.
And you're setting the record straight there by doing some wonderful coverage. Now, it's all you, isn't it? You and your dog, I think, and your IT-savvy husband. And
that's right.
You've built up the site. When did you actually start it then, Jenny?
It was launched in September 2014, having decided in the January that I was going to do something because I couldn't get information on the Ashes when Charlotte Edwards was busy winning them in Australia, and then I couldn't get information on the Six Nations, and I decided that I would do something. And it took me a few months to actually get some contacts and get some information, and my husband created the website for me, and off we went.
Perfect. Perfect. And you are feeding the website daily, I suppose, with news because you're very current with what you cover.
I try and get things on as quickly as I can. Sometimes they don't go on quite as quickly as I would like, but I do try and turn things around. The only problem is because it's just me, I don't get as much writing of my own done as I write loads of articles in my head that don't actually make their way onto the computer because time goes on and they become stale. So yeah, it's there's only so many hours in the day, and time is constantly my enemy.
I understand that, and the coverage you've got now is across as many sports as you can. You're not confined just to the mainstream sports, are you?
No, I decided I would cover as much women's sport as I possibly could, and I started out with 5, and I started out with the England team, so hockey, netball, rugby union, cricket and football. And then after a few months, I expanded that to cover club sport. And then somebody involved with boxing got in touch and asked if I would be interested in boxing. And Lucy Shuker, who's the amazing wheelchair tennis player, asked me if I would include wheelchair tennis. And it's, so it's gone on.
And there is no limit to, obviously, the possibility, and it all depends on your time and resources, of course. And where would you like to see this grow? I mean, are you able to commercialise it at all to get some return for your investment there, Jenny?
I would love to be able to get some investment in the site somehow, if nothing less so that I can pay people to contribute to the site for me and pay photographers for their effort, because I've some wonderful photos on the site that are, I'm allowed to use for free, and it would be great to, pay other people for their contributions. So that would be wonderful, and have people write for me, or for the site would be great.
Wonderful. Well, lots of possibilities there, Jenny, and we're delighted to welcome you as a media partner to Wisp Sports. So thank you for joining us. Keep on doing what you're doing. You're doing a great job and spreading the word for women in sport. All the very best of luck to you, Jenny.
Thank you very much indeed, Chris. Thank you.
And that's it for this episode. If there's anyone that you would like to hear from on our Athlete Profile series, do drop us a line to info@wispsports.com. We would love to hear from you. And our show notes will have all the links to the guests on this show at wispsports.com, and of course on the show notes accompanying this episode on your podcast player. Until the next time, thank you for listening.